another edition of the Square Post podcast. As always, I'm Daniel, and that's Sam. And today we're going to do a special episode because, as we've mentioned before, we're both big pro wrestling Noah fans, and they have a big two-night event coming up. So we thought we'd come and we preview the show, but we're not alone. Today we're joined by professional wrestler, Twitch streamer, Japan connoisseur, and all-around good guy, Shay Purser. So how are you both doing today?
Hey man, how's it going? I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about pro wrestling. Noah, I don't get to talk about like the more niche companies all that often, although I wouldn't consider Noah the most niche company. It's not exactly worldwide recognized, and I feel like I love talking about these companies. We always talk about New Japan, we always talk about Switchblade, we always talk about Omega, we always talk about what's coming up next there. I don't give a fuck. I want to hear about Shun Skywalker. I didn't have to ask if I could swear or not. Can I swear?
You can swear. Sam
Okay, there we go.
swears all the time.
Yeah, I do it all the time. You're all good.
Okay, I'll aptly try not to from this point onwards, but I got really impassioned about the fact that I like watching pro wrestling, Noah. So yeah, I'm really excited for the cards we've got coming up and what we're going to break down.
Yeah. So, and like I mentioned to you off air, I want to do the show for a while because, like I've mentioned to you before, like most of my wrestling knowledge about wrestling in Japan comes from your streams. So that's why I figured it'd be a good idea to have you on for this show.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a quick free plug. If you don't know who I am, my name's Shay Purser. I'm a professional wrestler from Cardiff, South Wales. I've been wrestling for 7.5 years. I was trained by Pete Dunne and Mark Andrews. I've done 2 tours of America. I've been back-to-back. I've wrestled Hornswoggle. I'm a former Attack Pro Wrestling champion, a 5-time Attack Pro Wrestling tag team champion, a single 24/7 champion. Didn't win any tag belts, weirdly. Don't know why. Don't have many friends in wrestling. But no, that's a little breakdown of my career. And if you wonder why they come into my stream so often, it's not because I'm this infinite fountain of knowledge. If you want that, go to Speedball Mike Bailey. I am a drunk moron who has a lot of surrounding friends that have told him a lot of things that he kind of remembers. And I'm always like, okay, no, I know that about Japan. Yeah, I know that niche obscure Dragon Gate 2011 Factoriumon. Hit me up, baby. But like... Yeah, so I feel like I'm kind of the right person to come on here and have a casual chat about Pro Wrestling Noah, where I freak out about how much I love Aita.
I should have just let you do your intro at the beginning.
It's a whole thing on my channel. Like you press it, it recycles through my head. It's easy.
Yeah,
it's probably one of my favorite things of your stream.
Yeah,
the shoeies and
like that shoey song is like nailed into my head now.
Every
time
song.
I hear it, I pop for it.
Anyone wondering, that's Smoker by the chats, but I think I have to change it now because of copyright. I will say, I think I've got a pretty good change before we carry on very briefly. I think I'm going to get Kyle Fletcher to sing it from United Empire because he sounds just like the singer. I don't know if anyone... obviously, if you are a fan of Japanese wrestling and you've seen United Empire... Listen to Kyle Fletcher speak and then go and listen to Smoko by the chats, and you will have like they're the same human. You won't believe that they're 2 different people.
He does. I can confirm. He sounds exactly like them.
Exactly like it.
Sam, how are you doing today?
Doing awesome. Excited to talk some Noah. We're gonna be just having a great time talking about Noah with one of the greatest indie wrestlers in the business right now.
This side of the Twitch universe. That's what we'll go with.
Yeah.
But
so,
let's get into it.
Speedball and Drama King Matt. There we go.
Yes.
Maybe on stream y'all are gonna start a feud. Who knows?
Absolutely. I'll deck Speedball. I won't. He's scary. I went over this last night.
Yeah. Okay. So the way I had this structured is that there are 2 nights, so we're just going to go over some of the more important matches on the card, and then we're going to talk about the foreign talent coming in because that's the big thing. That's the big sell about this event is that the foreign talent I'm back in pro wrestling now for the first time in 2 years. 2 years. Yeah. So, and then after that, we're just going to interview Shay about what he likes about his wrestling life. So let's get into it. So on April 29th, Noah is doing their N Innovation, which is pretty much the junior heavyweights, and that is headlined by Eita versus Hayata for the junior heavyweight title. I'm going to explain a little bit for people that don't know maybe the history about Eita and Hayata. Eita was brought in by Nosawa for Peros, and Nosawa and Ogawa, who was Hayata's mentor, they hate each other. Nosawa kicked out Yohei, another guy we'll talk about soon, because he thought he was too focused on tiles and not enough on making Ogawa's life a miserable hell. Um, so they hate each other. So by default, Ada and Hayata, who are both those men's, I don't want to say prize pupils, but like they're their confidants, they're the projects. So they hate each other. And Ada is, how do I put this? Um, he is a piece of garbage in the nicest way possible. I can mean that for a wrestler, because he lives his life making other people's miserable. So, um, and that gets under people's skin. Like for example, like the reason they're having this match is because there was supposed to be a tag match, Ada and Super Crazy, and Hayata and Ogawa, and Ada decided to shampoo Hayata's hair. There's a reason for that, and I'll tell you the reason. But like, it has nothing to do with this match. But pretty much, when Ada was fighting Harada for the junior heavyweight title, he decided to come to the press conference in the shower. Like he had a video camera, and then he was in the shower while the press conference was going on, and he just went in there like that. So he shampooed Hayata's head, I guess, for that. And then Hayata decided to attack him during his match with Yohei again. We'll talk about him in a little bit. So now they're having this match. And also another piece of background information for those who don't know. Before Hayata lost the title to Harada, he was on his way to 10 title defenses, which would have tied the record by Taiji Ishimori. So I just wanted to get both your thoughts on this match as a whole and these two individuals.
Shay, you can go first.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. So I like this feud a lot. You've given me a little bit of background there that I didn't know about Nasawa and Ogawa. I'm gonna say that reflects a lot of like. So if no one knows, junior heavyweight style is really influenced from Mexico because of Toriumon in the late '90s and early 2000s, and that carries through to the way the feuds run to this day. So Toriumon has this idea, the same as Mexican wrestling, I believe. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, where you have a maestro and you study underneath them, and then you kind of replicate that maestro. The term maestro. Let me think of a wrestler that throws it around. You consider like Skyder a maestro because of how many Western wrestlers he trained and how many people he took under his wing. And then
Yeah.
those trainees would follow in the path of Skyder. They would feud with Skyder's enemies because it's kind of like my dad's harder than your dad is the way I would like, my big brother's going to beat you up. Well, my big brother's going to beat you up. And then, just because your big brothers are fighting, naturally all of the little brothers fight. That's the effect that this has. And I really like that. I think that's something we don't see a lot in Western wrestling, which is just, you insulted the dude that trained me? Slap. You insulted the dude that trained me? Shampoo in your hair. How about that? And it's like, I really like that as a concept because I would, as someone that's been wrestling, get mad if, like, you went, hey, guy that trained you ain't shit publicly. I'd be like, oh, I'm not cool with that. Let's go, baby. So it's like the most believable feud to me, and the fact that it's the main event of night one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect way to main event. I think I really enjoy Hayata as well. I watched him a lot during the pandemic. Like when I got really into Noah during the start of the pandemic when Yohei was in a tag team. That's all I remember because I loved Yohei's tag work. And
Yeah.
and then Aita, I've worked with Aita in the UK quite a bit and trained with him, and he's great. Very charismatic wrestler, and I think he's underrated for how charismatic he is as well. I think people, especially in Western wrestling, associate charisma with words. He is so much more than just like a goofy character. The way he can get people invested in him, and the way that you can get people to hate him, 5-star. I love him.
So for me, I'll 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 say this that seeing that main event is pretty cool. It catches my eye immediately, like as someone that doesn't watch Noah as often, like because the junior heavyweights is all about like high flying and stuff, right? So you you're gonna see a lot of like the lucha type style, but in a more hard hitting version, and seeing uh Hayata working. I think I saw maybe one match of his when I first like starting to get into Noah, but yeah, and it should be a good match. because junior heavyweights in Japan always have great matches. I even like when it comes to like even on the other in the other companies like New Japan and stuff, like the junior heavyweights always have great matches, and to me, if I were to pick a guy to have the title, it would probably be Hayata.
Shay, do you have any predictions for the winner, or do you just want to?
I don't really have a prediction for the winner because I'm just going to enjoy the match. But
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a good one. Like you guys watch me on stream. I never predict who's going to win because I don't.
Yeah.
I like the surprise. Like I don't like to put preconceptions on. I'm like, okay, I'll watch this, and then like halfway through, I'll like guess who I think is going to win and go from there. I love it. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for it though. Regardless, I think like with what you're bringing up there, I'd recommend. This is a really weird side tangent, but it will loop back to the match. If you've ever watched any juniors wrestling pre like '96 in Japan before Toryumon came in and changed the juniors style, and like
Yeah.
Liger came in and started to revolutionize things, I'd really recommend going to watch like all Japan juniors from the '90s before that influence because it's like
Yeah.
Owen Hart was a part of it, and Rob Van Dam was as well. My bad.
Chris
No,
Jericho
Yeah.
as well.
Jericho, yeah. And what they're doing is like they're not wrestling a juniors style. They're wrestling like heavyweights, but 100 pounds lighter. And it's
Yeah.
so weird to like they're doing like their sequences are like body slam, leg drop, feed up, hold, work up, body slam. And it's like, oh, this is weird. It's like this is weird. And then like they'll suddenly just do a Phoenix Splash. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like your Kabashi if he forgot he could do gymnastics until the final 2 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah. I forgot which one, but I know Fit Finley wasn't one of those Best of Super Juniors. The only one
Yeah.
we do not have footage of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
5-star.
that's probably interesting, even though we'll probably
Yeah.
never see it.
Yeah, 5-star.
Yeah. So the next match is a guy we've been talking about before, Yohei, who after getting kicked out of Peros, he found a home in the Noah Juniors. And for those that don't know, the Noah Juniors, or the people we call Noah Juniors, are just those unaffiliated with any stable, and they're led by Harada. So he is taking on he is teaming up with Kotoge, who they're the junior heavyweight tag team champions, to take on Ogawa and a guy I'm excited to talk about because I love him so much, Chris Ridgway. So there's not much I can add to this. It's pretty much like Stinger versus Peros, except Yohei isn't in Peros, but Ogawa still does not like him because he was in Peros. So, you guys' thoughts on this match?
I'll go first this time. I'll say um Yohei is really good. I'm I believe I saw a match of his like actually probably around the same time that I started watching. Really, like he he's so good, and you were mentioning Chris Ridgway. He's another really good talent in this match. Uh, not not to like shit on the other competitors, but I just those two guys automatically I see that they're gonna have great chemistry in the ring.
Yeah, I really so I kind of I always follow if I'm like out of the loop with Japanese wrestling, I follow it via the gaijins that I know, and I know that's really bad and lazy of me, but I like it. I know I'm very aware. But it is a very easy reference point. Like a couple of years ago, if Stardom was going on, I just checked what Kaylee Ray's doing. Okay, varied idea. Okay, let's see what Jamie Hayter's doing. Varied idea. Okay, someone's in Japan. Let's see what Chris Brooks is doing. Varied idea. And Ridgeway's kind of been my thing with that for Noah, or was before I got properly into it. I believe this is his third Pro Wrestling Noah tour, and that's real good for him. Like I'm really excited for him. You just saw my mum walk by in the background there, by the way. I'm really excited for him. It's good to see him back because I know Japan is like what he cares about. For those of you who don't know as well, I'm a wrestler from the UK. I've wrestled and trained with Ridgeway quite a lot. He's a real cool dude. His goal to go to Noah's really inspiring. I like literally the almost like diametrically opposed wrestlers of Yohei and Ridgeway, and I guess Ogawa to a lesser extent as well, but he wears the rocker gear, so I don't count it as much. Another thing I'm going to say as well is I feel like, and I find this harder as a fan as someone that's gotten, like, I go through fleeting experiences with Noah. So, like, my first big Noah experience was when Saber was there. Like, that's what the first stuff I watched. Then I watched him and Taiji. Then I went back and watched Misawa's stuff. And then I went and watched the modern stuff. Like, I broke it down kind of like that. And Agara is one of those ones where I feel like in the past couple of years, especially if you're a Western fan, it's really hard to, like, understand why this dude is so over. Like, and understand why, like, everyone respects him so much, because
Yeah.
you're just not seeing the wrestler that was there a decade ago. And I don't even think, like, he's putting on the matches that would, like, make you go, oh fuck, Agar was this legendary wrestler. However, he is, and that's, like, something that's, I think, harder for Western fans to remember, is that he is this, like, massively legendary wrestler.
Yeah.
Like especially in the realm and lore of Noah. Like, he is like their Triple H, like, is the legitimate comparison to make, but people will not understand that unless they watch Noah for a few months. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's always I don't know, it's a weird one. I like Agawa, but I get why people aren't overly hyped on him right now, because he's obviously towards the end of his career. He's in that, like, oh fuck, who is it? I can't think of his name, but when they have all of the older lads come out at the start to wrestle the juniors in New Japan, like, he's in that kind of phase of his career, because Noah's a bigger scale. He can work people like Yohei. He can tag with Ridgeway because he's still got the prestige of being, like, that guy.
Yeah. Oh, some context I'll add that I probably should have added before you guys talk, but like I forgot. Ogawa and Hayata were tag team champions even earlier this year, but Ogawa got COVID, so they stripped them. Then their stablemates Saki Yoshioki and Yu Susumu, who we will talk about because of the guy he's wrestling, they got the tag belts. Then Saki got injured, and now it's Yohei and Katoge who have the tag belts. So just some context there,
Okay, makes sense.
for those that aren't aware. The next match is, I'm not overly familiar with these guys, but like I said, the theme of the night is foreign-born wrestlers are back in Noah,
Yeah.
or like there for the first time. So we have in a three-way that is going to be insane: Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, and Ninja Mac. The only one I'm overly familiar about is Ninja Mac, and I love him, so I can't wait to see what these three guys do. You guys?
Yeah, I was quite surprised by this match on the card. Like, I didn't realize Ninja Back was in Noah. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I saw
me
this
too.
dude at Mania. I saw this dude at Mania Week 2 weeks ago. I was like, what? Yeah, good for them. This sounds like a really exciting match. I don't think they have many juniors like Ninja Mac in Noah. It's a very, very, very different way of wrestling. I'd consider. Maybe this is like the new Noah. Like, this is the way they're being a little bit more. But, like, I'd consider the people that Noah would bring over more in the style of, like, your Daniel Garcias, your Zack Sabre Juniors, your Taiji
Yeah.
Ishimoris. And the fact that they brought over, like, what is a high spot junior heavyweight, nothing wrong with that, by the way. I feel like that's not a dirty term to me or anything like that. He just is a wrestler that is very, very good at high spots. Um, it's not normal. Like, I don't expect this from Noah. I expect it from maybe a DDT, maybe like one of the offshoots of Toriumon, like Kaientai or something like that. But, like, I wouldn't have expected it from Noah, and I'm really interested to see how a high spot Westerner does on a card like this. I don't Has Ninja Mac been over long? This was
No,
like
no, he just got here. Like all the foreign-born wrestlers, they just got here. I think Ninja touched down a week ago from his Twitter post. That seems
makes
about
sense,
right.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say because Ridgeway's hasn't left yet, so
yeah. Ridgeway just
that checks
yeah,
out.
Ridgeway's coming there. Sam.
Yeah,
Yep. Me too. I'm a big Ninja Mac guy. What he's done in GCW right now is so good. And now seeing him and Noah is going to be interesting, like Shay said. Just seeing how it's going to work out, but see if he can cross over from the American style to the Japanese style. It'll probably feel like a very like junior heavyweight match. It it'll be like maybe like a mix of like what uh an example of like to an American audience, probably like a Rey Mysterio, maybe.
Yes.
It'll be
Yep.
the best the equivalent debut I'll make is like, you know, when you see a luchador pop out of nowhere in the US scene.
Yeah,
So like when Penta and Phoenix first came on, like, and people were like, what the fuck? People can jump off their back into destroyers? That's mind blowing. Like, I think it'll be the same thing when Ninja Mac is doing like these incredible like parkour-esque running spots, and people are
yeah,
gonna be like, oh, we haven't seen this since Toriumon. Like, it's gonna be that kind of vibe, and I think that's really cool. And I think the way that Noah seems to be more Toriumon Jr. influence than it is ever before,
yeah,
where like it's a lot of high flying cruiserweights now. Whereas like I always considered Noah's cruisers to be wrestlers. Like high
Yeah.
flyers still, but wrestlers
yeah.
first.
Yeah. And okay, this is going to be in the side, but you brought up Torimon for like the fourth time, so I'll mention it. Ultimo Dragon did the no January shows, and then last week or the week before, he said that he's opening up Torimon Casa for no juniors who want to do their excursion, and
That's
he
sick.
said, and I quote, "If there's someone that I think would like fit not fit the style, but like someone I think see a lot of potential in, I would mentor them myself. It doesn't matter if it's in Torimon, Noah, wherever. If he sees someone he has like potential in, then he'll mentor them himself.
I
Which is
think
why I
that's
think, yeah,
I
which is
think
why,
that's superb. I am going to say, like, I think excursions are so important to young wrestlers' careers because I think, like, I've just, not to toot my own horn, I've wrestled in America twice and I went and did a month tour there. I learned so fucking much. And that's America. So I can't imagine what going from Japan to Mexico is like. Like, I'm being sick. Like, that's sick. The fact that, because Torimon used to do regular excursions and send people to Skyder, send people to, like, there was this constant flow of sending people over to the West and bringing Western talent over, and it was great. And it has not died out, but died out for the smaller promotions a little bit more, where you don't. Let me think. You just don't see as many wrestlers going out on excursion. They tend to like. I think Noah's only links with the United Kingdom in the past decade have been like Harada coming over for a couple of matches, Keno coming over for a
yeah,
couple of matches. Like it's never a working relationship. It's never keeping people in the country for months. The only company that I know that do that are New Japan.
yeah,
In fact, these companies have adopted the opposite method of bringing Westerners who have experience elsewhere to Japan. Um,
yeah,
which is great. Like, regardless, I'm cool with it. But I think that excursion system is so great, and I think using something like Torimon Casa is dope.
yeah. I I just brought it up because in the context that we're talking about how Noah's changing the junior heavyweight style, so that I figured that'd be like good knowledge to know.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this next match, there's a lot of history, and I'm scared of messing up, so I'll try to run it through quick. So if you're a long-time Noah fan, I'm not gonna give everything, but like enough so these guys can make like informed decisions. Neo and How. So you might know Neo as the former High 69. I forgot How's old nickname, so I apologize for that right off the bat. But pretty much, New and How in December 2019, early January 2020, they were brought into Keno's group, Congo, and they were giving these new names, Neo and How, and we will talk about Keno in much more detail much later. Um, but and for a while, for like the next 2 years, they were like the perfect tag team. Like you saw one, the other one was probably right there. And then in January of this year, there was some miscommunication. I was frustrated. He left. He joined the No Junior Army. And Neo did not take that very well. Nobody does when anybody leaves Congo, but yeah. So that has started Blood Feud and has escalated to the point when Neo challenged Tao, saying, "One more match, I beat you, you change your name. You do not go by your Congo name anymore." And Tao was like, "Do it yourself too." So we're here, the former best friends, tag team partners that no one thought would ever separate, and one person has to lose their name. So, what are your thoughts on this match?
Um. I think it's an interesting story. It feels like very old school in a way,
Yeah,
and like very like '90s wrestling. Like it feels like when you see like an old storyline that would be like maybe 97, 98. American wrestling. Like you would see that kind of stuff happening around there, and and those two guys are telling a story that would fit perfectly for that time and even now. Like it's not a story that has like low hanging fruit or anything like that. It, it's a very interesting story to me as someone that doesn't watch the product as often. Like it it really like brings that American like version out, which really interests me. I can't wait to see this match.
Yeah, I think like it's a common ground. Like everyone recognizes feuds like this. Like, you know, like it doesn't
Yeah,
take a genius to work out I'm trying to take your name. Like, and I think that's a really cool aspect. Like this again, I hate to constantly, but I feel like when you're talking about junior heavyweights in Japan, you have to go back to Mexico.
yeah,
And I think this is a perfect example of like a lucha de espetas kind of match, like mask versus mask, hair versus hair,
yeah,
name versus name. Like they are so common in the areas they come from, and Japan will use them like they're brand new things, and people will go, "Wow, incredible." And I think that's great. Like, what's old is new is a very, very relevant saying in wrestling, and I think this is a good example of it. Yeah, I love stuff like this. Like, this is like my shit because it's a chance for you to rebrand as a wrestler. It's a chance for you to do what you want, and I always like when situations like this are capitalized on. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, and then again, more than anything, interested to see how the feud, not how the feud, but how the wrestlers evolve from this point.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the next match I want to talk about, I mentioned it briefly. For those that don't know, Kotaro Suzuki is pretty much my GOAT junior heavyweight. So, and Yu Yu Susumu is a guy that I've grown to love a lot, mostly because the ring gear is really cool, in my opinion. And we mentioned Peros versus Stinger before. This is the
Yeah.
same thing. Kotaro's in Peros, Yu Yu is in Susumu is in Stinger. So these two naturally don't like each other, and then you add the matches they've had recently, and it's gone pretty bad. So Katara says he'll embarrass Sumu in Sumo Hall because it's Kotaro and Nasawa's a bad influence on him, in my opinion. But that's a whole other issue. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts on these matches.
Yeah,
Kotaro,
I am very briefly now pulling up Kizaru Suzuki's age because I've got a point to make. Um, Kizaru Suzuki is 43 years old, right? And I did a show with him in 2016, which would make him, I don't know, I'm not good at maths. Like,
36, 37.
there we go. I've had a lot of concussions. And then I turned up, and all this man was doing was laps around the venue. And I'm not exaggerating. The venue was like, it was relatively big, like not huge, but relatively big. He must have ran laps around that venue from about 4 till 7 p.m. Like he just didn't stop running. And I was like, okay, you're an insane old man who would murder me. I was like, this is terrifying. You've got the cardio of a 20-year-old on performance enhancers. I was like, this is insane. I respect you, scary man. And also kind of like if anyone's seen Harry Potter, like how Dementors protect Hogwarts, that's what it felt like. I felt like I couldn't enter if he was directly staring at me, otherwise he'd take my soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Kotaro Suzuki. I think he's a really, really, really good wrestler. I think backing up as like one of the goats is one of your goats is like completely, completely justifiable as well. He's gone on to do like a lot of different things in companies, and he's he always gives you a good match. Whenever you throw Kotaro Suzuki on a card, you're going to enjoy what he's going to put out in front of you, or at least I always have. So, yep, enjoy Kotaro Suzuki's wrestling, having fun stuff like this where he pops up, and I'm like, hey, it's Kotaro Suzuki. It's always really fun. He likes Jaeger bombs. Anyway.
Um, for me, Kentaro Suzuki, he's a legend at this point in his career. He's what 15, 20 years in
yeah.
at this point.
He was the
He
first Noah. Sorry, he was the first Noah born. Like he was the first one that graduated from the Noah dojo. So sorry, I just
yeah,
wanted to.
he's the first Noah original basically. And he's at his point at the point of his career now, like Shay said, he has an amazing work ethic, and for his age, like you look at a guy like like to an American comparison, I would probably compare him to a maybe like an AJ Styles or something like that. To an extent, because they both work like kind of the same in a way. Like they're around the same age too. So just to try to think of a good comparison, but the Kentaro Suzuki, like Shay said, he he's he's amazing, and like you said, he's nearing 50. Like he's literally like maybe 4 years younger than my parents. Like he's he's that good. Like
Yeah,
he if he keeps going by the time he does hit 50, like he's gonna he's gonna have like a Hall of Fame statue or something.
he might. Like I've seen his matches. He's not slowing down. He's still
No.
going with he's still
Yeah.
going with the young guys. Um, okay. So this next match, I don't know too much about like three of these guys because they're from Dragon Gate, but I know Shay loves Shun Skywalker, so I
Hell yeah,
figured
baby.
it's worth
Yeah.
mention. We have Junta Miyawaki, Harada, and Alejandro versus um, SB Kento, Shun Skywalker, and HYO. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's I mean. Um, so for the story for this match is Dragon Gate and Noah are doing more things together. We have Aita, who we've talked about before. We have Machizuki, who is amazing. Um, he's also ageless, but that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so you had these three Dragon Gate guys because in Dragon Gate, these three guys they kicked Aita out of his own stable and they renamed it the Z-Brats from two Z-Brats. And so Harada, who's in this match, lost his junior heavyweight title to Aita. And now the story is that Dragon Gate guys think the Noah guys are weak, so now they just want to beat them up.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you guys have to say about this match besides Shay's love of Shun Skywalker, so I'll
Ye-
give the floor to you guys.
So let
Yeah.
Shay
Yeah,
put
yeah. So
over
like
Shun here.
I really enjoyed Dragon Gate. Like I always have. It's been like after Toryumon died, because obviously I was fucking 5 when Toryumon died, you know, I'm not gonna pretend I was back in my day when Toryumon was around. But one thing that I really did like when Dragon Gate came around was it still felt like Toryumon, and a lot of the wrestlers have carried on that style and carried on that feeling of being like a distinctly Mexican Japanese wrestling style for juniors. And I think Shun Skywalker's a really, really, really good example of that. I think like he carries on that legacy perfectly. I think he brings that feeling of Dragon Gate wherever he goes. It's very rare that wrestlers do that. I think Shima's another one of them. And especially with like post what I call like post Dragon Gate, where like a lot of the existing stars left to go and do other things. You know, like Tozawa went on to work for the WWE. Shima went on to start OWE, which is Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, which you would have, if any of you watched AEW when it was first starting, they were real heavy on plugging that. No idea where that went.
I don't think it's around anymore,
Nah,
or it's
Oni.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really small
It
because I know Shima does a lot of New Japan stuff now.
yeah.
and I think Shima got injured right when they were promoting all the stuff
Uh,
for OVE. Mm,
Yeah, I remember because they went to come to the UK and their tour was being managed by someone who is not the best at managing tours. So it fell to pieces. I remember I got a message. No, that's a different story for a different time.
We'll have you
There's
back on to talk about all
yeah,
these
yeah,
stories.
yeah.
yeah. There's yeah, but I love Shun Skywalker. I think like again carries around that Dragon Gate style very well. A star.
Uh,
Uh, the I'll say this. Probably the name that I recognize more probably would be Shun Skywalker, and I'll say this. I I think I've seen a match of his, but from what I've heard, he's really good, and of course Shay puts him over all the time, and rightfully so. And he this trios match should be very good.
Hell yeah.
yeah. this next match is kind of an opening match. So the only reason I want to talk about it is because the theme of the night is foreign-born wrestlers are finally back in Japan.
Yeah.
So Slex is back. He
Yeah,
was yeah
Yeah.
yeah he was in the Mighty Don't Kneel in No like 10 years ago, something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
legitimately a decade ago. Like,
Yeah.
I looked at it and went, eh? Like, I'm really happy. Carry on. Sorry, I just had to say that.
Oh no, that was on my spiel because I don't know Slex that well. I figured you would know him better, so I thought I'd give the floor to you.
Yeah, I'm not like I wouldn't call myself like a Slex expert, but obviously I know TMDK because of Australian friends, and I again know kind of like I would describe Slex as a friend of a friend. Like I know him via people, and I know his career well. So like I wouldn't say I know him all that well, but I know of him. I know he's been a part of Noah nearly a fucking decade ago. So like it was quite wild to stare at that and go, the same Slack. Like, and I knew it was because I recognize him. But I was like, oh, cool. So I'm excited for him. Like, I presume that's going to be something that means a lot to that dude. And if it's opening, especially, he's going to put a lot into that, or like one of the opening matches at least.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
going to put a lot into that. Like, and that's always an exciting prospect. Hell yeah.
So, well, I guess we could talk about Tejano, who is not junior heavyweight really, but he is part of
Yeah.
Perros because he was in the original one. So Nasawa recruited him for that one, and he is also in Noah right now. So I don't know, like my level of knowledge for Tejano was Lucha Underground, which
Yeah.
we've talked about before. We don't really need to get into, but it led me to his a triple A stuff, and like dude's good. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you guys have
Yeah,
anything to add.
Yeah.
like I described this a lot about Lucha Underground. Like the wrestling there's superb, and you can get a lot of eyes on it, which is really good. And everyone discovered like their favorite wrestlers from Lucha Underground. You know what I mean? Like people discovered Pentagon from there, people discovered Jeff Cobb from there, people discovered Shane
Rosa.
Strickland from there.
Yeah.
So many names we can throw out, right? And it's so sick. And I think he's another example of that where like he got a lot of positive exposure because of Lucha Underground, and that's fucking great. Um, Tejano Jr. is a great 6-man wrestler.
Yeah.
In the idea that like he can work with anyone, he can have a good match with anyone, and he's got spots and moments that translate very well to get in, do something, get out. And he is great at that aspect of wrestling. And I can't wait to see what that kind of match produces. I think whenever you throw like Mexican born wrestlers who are like base gods like that, like your Gringo Loco styles, if anyone here watches GCW, um uh like the base god style, I think Tejano Jr. also hones that quite well.
Yeah.
For me, I think like Dan said, my first experience with Tejano Jr. was Lucha Underground as well, and he was probably one of my favorites on that show. Him and the Lucha Bros were probably some of my favorites. So seeing him in Noah now is really cool. Um, he he's done some very interesting things so far, and can't wait to see what he does in this show.
Yeah. Also, real quick, two guys we're probably not going to talk a lot about because of time reasons, but legends in their own right. So I want to shout them out: Don Fuji and Suji Kondo, two legends who I can't wait to see in the with this Noah guys. I think they're only there for like one night, but it's still going to be really good. And so I guess we should move on to the next night, April 30th, which is more like the heavyweight night.
Yeah,
The first match I want to talk about, because again, foreign born, um, is Masato Tanaka and Daki Inaba are teaming up to take on the former GHC Tag Team Champions in Rene Dupree and El Hijo del Wagner Jr.
I'll start this one because Rene Dupre is from Shidyat, and so to see an Acadian, he went from being a WWE guy to all of a sudden leaving WWE in like what maybe it was 6 or 7,
Yeah.
then making his career in Japan, which is really cool. Good for Rene. It it'll be interesting to see what he does that night. So, and of course, my money is going to be on Rene specifically because he's Acadian and he's from literally like an hour from me. So it it should be a really good match.
I like Rene Dupree because I've done a lot of shows with him in the UK, and he's like the most cracked out old school wrestler you'll meet in your life. Like when I say
I'm not
cracked out,
surprised though.
not actually smoking crack, but I don't think.
I know what you mean there.
Yeah, like he is
Like a very carny.
Yeah, he is something. He's an experience. Like every promoter has some weird ass story of him being funny as fuck. By the way, not weird in a bad way. Trust me, I'm always in a positive light here. Like he is such a strange individual, and I'm always fascinated to watch him wrestle because of it. Like he's one of those ones where I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? I'm like, what are we gonna get the French tickler dance? Is he gonna go 20 minutes top style? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening? And I love it. I love every second of it. I think he's a very unpredictable wrestler, is the wording that I'm going to use. I didn't know he tagged with Dr. Wagner, by the way. That's badass.
Yeah, they were
fantastic.
in they were Sigurgon International. They were like two of the main foreign born gaijin in Noah for a while. So Sigur just was like, hey, I'll take both of them. They'll team up and they can like they'll win.
That's a fun tag. But yeah, I love cracked out Rene Dupree. 5 stars.
All right.
Big shouts out.
Yeah. The next match I want to talk about is Masakatsu Funaki, who is taking on Simon Gotch for the GHC national title.
Wait, what? As in like the guy that was at Mania weekend and the guy from the Vaudevillains? I've got a very funny story about that man from Mania weekend that I don't think I can tell on stream. It's funny about me, not him. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But that's just I'll tell you a very small bit of it because it is very funny. He walked up to me and went, "Oh, Shay," and I was like, "Do you remember who I am? We've like met twice." And he went, No, I remember you because of," and then he said the thing, and I went, "Oh my god!" I was like, "I do not remember that. That is good to know. Thanks. But I'm gonna go walk away now and not see you for the rest of the weekend." Yeah, 5-star dude. Sorry, I just had to interrupt with that because that was I was like, what? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, seeing Simon Gotch in Noah is interesting because when he first left WWE, he went to MLW right away and he made MLW his home. So it'll be interesting to see how he works out with the Japanese style. So it'll be interesting, like especially of course like he's a very like a very like old school, like he still has that vaudevillain style.
I'll tell a fun story here. When I first met Simon Gotch, it was July 2017. King of Trios came to the United Kingdom. And the way I got to know that man was a very good wrestler was we were in a nightclub and he just kept putting me in wrestling holds. As in, like, I'd like be ordering at the bar and he put me in a gate hold, and I'd be like, ah! I'd be like, what's going on? I'd be like, who is this man? So, am I being taken by like the security? And I'd be like, oh no, it's former NXT Tag Team Champion Simon Gotch. It's like a very funny moment for me where I'm like, oh, okay. And that's where I started to realize, like, I grappled with him then. He's got some form of background. I don't want to say he's a black belt, but I know he's got a big background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's what I always. I don't know what grade he is, but he was a good enough grade to correct my belt tie when I was at Mania weekend. If by the way, if anyone doesn't know, I do a gimmick where I wear a martial arts gi and tie my belt. I purposely tie it incorrectly in front of wrestlers. It's like I don't do it all the time, but like there's like, especially in front of people, I'll be like, and then I'll look at him and just smile. He'll correct it for me, and I'll be like,
specific people.
Yeah, absolutely. I wind people up all the time. I'm a shitbag backstage, man. I wind so many people up.
This is exactly what I wanted you on the show. But also, I figure we should talk about Masakatsu Funaki because that dude, I don't think legend. I mean, a legend gets thrown around a lot, but
but he's up there for sure.
He's done everything. And he's still going. It's 2022.
And he's the champion.
Yeah.
No.
like what the fuck? It's
And
great.
Yeah.
isn't that dude like what, almost 60? And
Yeah, he's getting
Yeah.
up. Yeah, yeah. Um. Okay, so there's a match on this card. I refuse to talk about our principal, but I want to say real quick. Masake Tamiya deserves the world. Nasawa should belt him up this year. I don't care which belt. That dude deserves a belt. Um. So the next match is. It's not really a title. It's not. It has the potential to be interesting right now.
Yeah.
It's Naomichi Marufuji, who we all know and love,
yeah,
who has a mystery partner who is taking on Kaito Kiyomiya and Yoshiki Inamura. I don't want to get too much into the mystery partner because I think most people think it's either Kenta, because again, we all love Kenta, or
yeah.
Eddie Edwards because Eddie loves Noah.
Yeah,
There's,
yeah.
And
yeah,
he represented Noah in the Multiversum Matches show for
yeah,
Impact.
yes. I'm personally hoping it's one of those two, but I'm not trying to get my hopes up just in case it's someone else who we will not discuss on. But yeah, so yeah, I want to get. I don't know how much you guys know about Kaito or Inamura, but those two guys are good too. So yeah,
I know
Yeah.
quite a bit about Kaito. I know Enamura as well, to be fair, but I know quite a bit about Kaito because he's been a part of like the more mainstream Noah feuds in the past few years. So
yeah,
that's how I know who he is. Like whenever I tune in, he's doing something. So I'm aware. Like whenever I tune in, all of the people tell me, "Oh, you have to watch the Kaito match on this card." Like that is literally like almost a default, and I'm like, "Okay, sweet." Yeah, yeah, I love Marufuji. He's inspired. Like he is probably up there with Amazing Red of people that inspired your favorite wrestler and you don't realize. Like it's like he like I was very fortunate. I got to work for a company called Lucha Forever for quite a while, and they brought in a bunch of talent, and they did Pete Dunne versus Marufuji. And that match was fucking incredible. And
I'm
like
not surprised.
watching Pete and watching Osprey and watching all of these UK talents, literally like not to be this guy, but like do his stuff like non-stop, and like no one realized that it's Marufuji stuff until the Pete was in the ring with him. Like Pete was in the ring with him, and then people were going, "Oh my god, British wrestling has stolen half its stuff from Marufuji," and I was like, "Yep." I was like, "Yep." Like I had a trainee with me, and they turned to me and went, "Wait, he's doing all of Pete stuff and Osprey stuff," and I went, "No, no, 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 no." I
It's
was
the
like,
opposite.
I was like, they stole that off that guy like a decade ago. I'm like, that's but no, I love Marufuji. I think he's great. I'd love to see him tag with Kenta. Kenta's got that esteemed history with Noah.
And with Marufuji.
And with Marufuji, yeah. You can go, I think you can even go on YouTube and watch their matches for free. They're like 30 minutes long and they're all bangers.
they're
Yeah.
all awesome. I've watched them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kenta and Marufuji's feud is what got me into Noah in the first place.
Yeah, that there. So I get that being like the full circle moment. That'd be really cool. Even if it doesn't happen, um, the crowd will more than likely enjoy it. Is one thing that I always say about like I don't know who the other speculated people are, but one thing I'll always say is we don't always get why matches happen in the West, and then in Japan it gets very well received, and that tends to be a thing. The example that I'm going to use is was it Shibata at Wrestle Kingdom, where
Oh,
everyone was
yeah.
like, he's going to wrestle Kenta, he's going to wrestle this, he's going to wrestle that, and all of me and my friends were going, that's going to be a Black Trunks Junior. We were like, that's going to be because we know the way
Yeah.
the way Japanese wrestling booking works. We were like,
yeah,
that's going to be a junior in Black Trunks. And the crowd loved it because that's what they wanted to see. And I get the feeling we might get another situation like that, but I don't know Noah that well because I don't want to predict, but that tends to be a pattern when these kind of things go on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ren Narita, who was Shibata's prized pupil. It still
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, speaking of Kaito, most people know Kaito. If you watch Kaito in the last 2 years, you've probably seen him against this.
Nice. Did we kill Dan? I think we killed Dan. I'll address it. Don't worry. I work on live streams. I don't know what to do here. You guys can edit. That's great.
Yeah.
That's like that's the
Man.
highlight. There we go. You
There
Dan, you
we
disconnected
go.
Okay,
there.
sorry.
Welcome back to the show.
All right, we do not edit actually, so what you see is what you get.
That's even better.
Now I'm hoping this will get viral or something like.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, why
Sorry.
not?
I don't know what happened there. But
Eh,
what I was saying is, if you see Kaito, you've probably seen Keno, and this is a match I'm really looking forward to because Keno is awesome. Got Brian Danielson is my goat, but Katsuhiko Nakajima was my wrestler of the year last year. Hideki Suzuki could probably kill a man with his bare hands if he wanted to. So could Takashi Sugiura, and so some background, just because I like giving background on these matches when I can. Keno's whole thing is he does not like old people, which is really weird when you consider the fact he's 37 and will soon be one of those old people he hates.
yeah,
But I don't think Keno sees the irony, especially because he got Masakatsu Funaki in his group, which again does not see the irony because he is Keno. I
they'll
don't need to
probably
exist
have
anymore.
Funaki turn on him pretty soon.
Actually, I think it's the opposite, and for a reason I will explain in a bit. Because the story behind this match is Great Muda, who everyone knows, most people love, but again, story for a different day, got injured. So him and Marufuji had to vacate the tag titles, and there were four teams in that tournament. Marufuji and Mochizuki, who we talked about before, who we love, uh, Takashi Sugiura, and making his return to Japan, Hideki Suzuki, and we don't need to talk about his previous one, um, Keno and Funaki, and Kaito and Daiki Inaba. And pretty much, Keno and Funaki got matched up with Sugiura and Suzuki, and they lost because Funaki was pinned. So this time, Keno's trying to change his luck, and teaming up with Nakajima, who's on a bit of a downward spiral since losing his GHC championship, which again I have many thoughts about. None good for Nasawa. Um, but yeah, I just want to talk about this match because it's gonna be awesome. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on it.
Keno. So I like Keno a lot. Mainly because his name sounds like the nickname of someone called Ken in the United Kingdom. Keno. And it just makes me really, really happy. I first met Keno in 2018. He came over to the United Kingdom to wrestle Chris Ridgway. For Will Ospreay's promotion at the time. And it was, I think, the thing that got Ridgway to Noah, if I'm not wrong. Like, it was like Ospreay opened that door and was like, hey, wrestle Keno. They had the kind of match that Keno likes, and he was like, oh, yep, come over. Which is great. That's awesome. And he's a very, very talented wrestler. Again, one of those guys that, like, I think Western audiences take a passing glance at and they don't really know who he is. And then, like, if you go and actually look at his style and work, he's fucking great. Like, so good. I'd recommend checking out more Kenner work outside of this weekend as well if you haven't, if you're watching this podcast for the first time. Like, well, in general, and you don't watch Kenner for some reason, you schmuck.
I'll say this: Keno to me, of course he's one of my favorite Noah guys, because to me he was the perfect foil for Marufuji right after Kenta left to go to WWE. I feel like when Kenta left to go to WWE, he he was one of these guys that was immediately put into that and immediately became a star because of it. And I think him going forward, I think he'll be that guy even if Kenta does come back for a little run or whatever. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, Keno's like the heel that isn't a heel because
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
what he's saying is you're supposed to be against, but like it's Keno. He's very entertaining, and a lot of
yeah,
people agree with him.
yeah.
he's like a John Moxley basically.
Yes, yes. Okay, speaking of bouncing off guys, we talked about Nakajima, so let's talk about a guy who has the other side of the spiral, and Go Shiozaki, who is taking on Fujita for the GHC Heavyweight Championship. So for those that don't know, Go Shiozaki and Katsuhiko Nakajima have a lot of history that we will get into in a later episode. But for right now, the only thing you need to know is that Go came back from injury last year, challenged Nakajima, lost to Nakajima, and then started a weird downward spiral that I think was supposed to lead to a heel turn before they changed plans. And he started getting some wins. He beat Nakajima like in just a regular singles match after Nakajima had lost, and then challenged Fujita for the title. I have a lot of opinions about Fujita, just not in general, but in, like as a heavyweight champion. That once again we don't have to get into, but like Nosawa hates me. I'm convinced at this point. So I really want Go Shiozaki to win because we talk about legends. Go is getting up there as one of Kenta Kobashi's sons. So you guys thoughts on Go this match?
Yeah,
Fujita?
I love Go and Nakajima as a rivalry. As a side note, it was like one of the few pandemic things that kept me going with wrestling.
Yeah.
Me too.
Like I think like they were just having very good pandemic matches, and they were so suited to that style. I actually watched don't know if I'm allowed to say that I watched it with him. I watched professional. I watched Nakajima versus Go Shiozaki with a very very good professional wrestler, and the way he spoke about Nakajima, and I agree with this completely. I will circle back on to Go in a second. He is what every single Western black trunk serious wrestler is trying to be so badly. And I was like, that is so true. I was like, and that's not an insult to the Western wrestlers, but like they'll just not be Nakajima. Like, and I mean that. Like, people that are trying to be this like serious, straight-laced, broody wrestler will not be Nakajima. Anyway, to move back to Shiozaki, I like Shiozaki a lot. I remember him when he first started. Like I remember watching that Donny breakthrough and being like, oh, he's gonna be around for a while. Like he's gonna have that run. He's gonna find a foil. He's gonna find people to feud with. He's gonna be maybe even I thought a constant in Japanese wrestling, not specifically Noah. And yeah, he's really gone on to prove those words true and then some. I think.
Yeah.
He's a superb wrestler. I'd like to see him win the belt because I'm not like I don't know. I'm just a fan of like people I know Western audiences are completely unfamiliar with or like less familiar with holding belts and then having bangers in front of them. And I feel like that's a really good thing. Also, by the way, I've mentioned a lot about Western wrestling and Japanese wrestling. If you need a reference for Pro Wrestling Noah and you are English speaking, they now have a YouTube channel which is run by a former commentator in the United Kingdom. I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's all it's the official Noah channel. It's like the Noah English YouTube channel. If you're struggling to catch up with cards, if you need to work out what's been happening, I strongly recommend going over there. It's hosted by a man called G-Man, Chris Garrett. He's the man. Recommend checking that out.
So for me, when it comes to Go, I like him. He's like almost like a like when Randy Orton first debuted in WWE. He's got that same uh, young boy type vibe where he comes in like and he has gotten over very quickly. And he's gonna be one of these guys, like Shay said, that American audiences and Western audiences in general are gonna sit there and go, okay, this guy's good. He's gonna be something that when you ask them about this show, he's gonna be one of these guys that people are gonna remember that isn't a gaijin. He's gonna be one of these guys that when you when you ask them, 90% of the time it's gonna be him, Nakajima, and Marufuji. And and those are all great options. But uh, Go Shiozaki winning the title would be uh, what should happen.
Yeah. Also, you brought up Nakajima and Shizaki, so I thought I would throw this out there because I just remembered Ian Skinner, who we all love in this channel. We were talking about Nakajima once, and he said he is Naito but sexy. Like his
Yeah,
skin.
I've heard that take, which is incorrect because that implies that Naito isn't sexy, and that's just wrong. Like,
I was hoping
like,
you would pick up on that, but
yeah, that's just incorrect. Like, fuck you, Ian Skinner.
Shay's trying to get a match with Ian, so he can.
We still haven't met.
Yeah.
Like, it's another one of those like Mariah May-esque situations, or Amira Blair, who I think I'm meeting today, by the way.
Yeah.
Like where I just do not meet them for like knowing them for 2 years. It's crazy.
Yes, I've known you guys for a year, and I've not met any. I haven't met anyone from Twitch or
Nah.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me neither. Like
I've
I've known Dan for like pretty much the entire pandemic.
That's crazy.
Like since
yeah,
like through Fightful and stuff, but
But to be fair to
That-
you guys, like at least you know you're in different countries. Like you guys got a
Yeah.
bit of an issue. Ian Skinner's like an 8-hour train journey away. like there was probably a point where he was an hour away a couple of months ago. I could have gone to see him. It just we're both insanely lazy apparently.
yeah.
yeah.
But
But-
yeah, that's all the matches on the. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw it back to you anyway.
Yeah. That's all the matches on the card. I think I want to talk about. So we could do this at the end of the interview, but I figured we'll do it now since we're talking about Noah. One thing that we started to do, is we talk about our 5 favorites. So 5 favorite Noah wrestlers, either all time or currently. Like I don't mind whichever one you. Think.
I'll throw out Misawa because it's obvious. Like I think that's just like you have to. Nakajima, I really, really like Nakajima. I wasn't I've always liked him, but then when I sat down with ex-wrestler that I'm not going to name, who described them as very, very, very good, and the points of like a lot of people replicate this guy but didn't do it as well, I was like, oh, he's like a trendsetter. I was like, fuck me.
Yeah.
Like that's sick. Marufuji, because I really like watching Marufuji wrestle. Let's go with Seguria because he has really fucking good matches and like people forget about him. Like I feel like he's like a forgotten son of the fucking Noah roster because he has consistently good professional wrestling matches against a lot of different good professional wrestlers. And I'll have to throw him in there, Saber. Like that's just a personal thing. I think like he evolved so much when he got to Noah. I think he's like I've said this before.
Yeah.
I think Zack Sabre Jr. is probably the best wrestler in the world. Like I like he the way he wrestles is so appealing to me. So like being able to watch him refine that style when he was in Noah and work out what worked for him and what didn't, and seeing him literally go from hold to hold of I don't like this hold. I don't like that. I've got a hold that I like now. Like I've got European clutch. Like that all came from Pro Wrestling Noah. Like the Zack Sabre Jr. we get in Japan doesn't in New Japan doesn't happen if we don't get Zack Sabre Jr. in Noah first. And I think like I just fucking I'm a Sabre mark man. I could speak all day about Zack Sabre Jr.
My top 5 is since you said both all time and current, I'm gonna say Kenta right away. Nakajima obviously. Nagata. Because wasn't he there?
He made some appearances. He was in New Japan, but New Japan and Noah had a crossover in the early 2000s, so he made some appearances.
So I'm gonna put him there, and I'm gonna put as Go Shiozaki, and I guess for just because he's like literally from 30 minutes away from me, René Livre.
Hell yeah, the French tickler.
I'll go Misawa, Nakajima, Sugiura, Kotaro Suzuki.
Yeah, fair.
And Go Shiozaki. An honorable mention, Kenta and who was that? Keno. Yeah, that's too good. Alright, well that's the Noah portion of the interview. Now it's the time where we interview Shay about yeah. So I have one question, and Sam probably has a lot more, but I'm really tired right now because, as you mentioned earlier, it's very, very early where I am.
Yeah.
You were trained by Pete Dunne. How is Pete as a trainer?
The best trainer that I've ever been around with. No exaggeration either. So I have a thing with wrestling. You can be a superb professional wrestler. You can be a dog shit wrestling trainer. Like, and vice versa. You will meet wrestlers that you do not consider to be like the best wrestler in the world, and they will teach you so much. Pete is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and he will teach you an unlimited amount. The way I will phrase Pete Dunne's training compared to everyone else's, I have worked with a lot of the top talent in the United Kingdom and Europe and in America as well now. As a referee, wrestler, whatever. Um, Pete is the reason that I've done the vast majority of things in my career, from refereeing to the gimmick that I currently do to the promotions that I've worked to even where I began my first American tour. Pete, if you don't know, did Chikara in 2013. I went there in 2019. Like I am very, very heavily influenced by that man because, and I can't say this enough, every other trainer will give you the advice that worked for them, or they will base their advice off of what they've experienced. Pete, despite his experiences in any training seminar, will sit down with the wrestler for a quick 2 minutes and go, okay, so what are you about? Like, what are you doing? Like, how can I like get what you're doing? And then he'll watch you wrestle and go, like, as an example, right? We had a wrestler in our area, local wrestler, like, didn't really do much, and he did like an alcoholic gimmick essentially. I'm not the biggest fan of those characters, but um, I know I don't think Pete is either. I'll put it that way. And he was sat there and he was like, I mean, what about if you just like acted way more like unhinged, a bit more like Dean Ambrose? And he went, oh, I don't know. He went a bit more like Jake Roberts, just trying to throw references out there to meet a middle ground with this guy. And Jake Roberts resonated with him. So he was like, all right, Sound. He went, I want you every single time you ever lock up with a human being to run at them. He went, so don't like, circle and then walk towards them and grab. He went, just run at them and grab them. And he went, if they don't lock up with you, that's their problem. And this guy seemingly went from like what I call like a cliched alcohol, that kind of gimmick you see on an independent wrestling show to something completely unique. Like now he looked like this scrappy, like I'm gonna eat your fucking meat off of your bones. Like I need this paycheck win. And I was like, oh, Pete can legitimately turn anyone into anything. And like that was my moment where I was like, oh, you're superb. Like I've had other moments like that with him, but like that was my moment where I was like, oh. And the other moments, like I've mentioned this before, he owns used to own Attack Pro Wrestling, RIP. And then he would sit down with wrestlers and be like, all right, this is the character that you're doing. Do it like this. He'd be like, do it like that. And then he'd speak to you at the end and be like, okay, how are we going to work this to make it work for you though? And little things like that, man. Little changes that aren't just generalizing what you're about to do in professional wrestling, that aren't just getting his money and giving you what he's learned. He actually wants to improve you as a worker. I cannot say enough good words about that man. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I know he was essentially the head trainer in NXT UK before he left. Like, as in, they had other trainers there that were technically more advanced than him, but he was running the schedules. He was doing all of that. In NXT, I know he was a producer and a trainer, and I'm going to presume he's doing the same on SmackDown. If I'm being honest, because that man's brain is so valuable. It's so valuable to create other stars. And that is, I think, a big reason that he's so, like, I will not stop raving about that man. And also, as a human being, generally, like, I think, especially like when it's a time of uncertainty and you can't really work out who's a good person, who's a bad person, Pete is like the most straight-laced person you'll meet, as in, like, you get what you're getting with him. And he's a very morally correct person as well. I've got all the time in the world for Pete.
Well, speaking of Pete, really, like you said, you were training with him. Is there anything you learned from him that you've taken into your wrestling now? Like
pretty much, I'm not gonna lie, pretty much everything. I'll specify one or two things now, but like every single thing you see me do is probably influenced by Pete, but in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's actual mannerisms. Like I steal his fucking mannerisms. I'm very aware of it. Like I have a real bad habit of mirroring wrestlers I like. Luckily, I'll never be on like. Luckily, like with Pete, if it was noticeable, people would go, "Oh, that's because he's trained by Pete," and I was like, "Thank fuck." But like, I went through a really bad period when I was 17 of wrestling like Kenny Omega, and not like as in doing One Winged Angels, as in like I do like the really weird like. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit more noticeable.
yeah.
But yeah, Pete is in every facet of my career probably been. He made my gimmick. Like that's like the thing that I default to. Like he made my character. That exists because of him. I am a referee. I was a referee because of him. I got all of my work in Fight Club Pro because of him. I got all of my work in Attack because of him. Like he has been the most influential person on my career, without a doubt. And I got a really nice compliment from he hosts a podcast, but he also was a rapper in the United Kingdom. His name's Scroobius Pip. And he used to frequently attend Progress shows. If any of you are into your British grime, you will be losing your mind right now. And there's And he used to also come to a show called Riptide. And at Riptide, I portray a very different character to what I used to do. I was like essentially the lackey for a rich faction. And like, I don't think I'd done anything like that in the South London area before, or in England before. Like at Attack, I'd done like the arrogant, like haha character, but I'd never done it anywhere else. And he pulled me aside and he went, "Hey, can I just say you remind me so much of Pete Dunne? I don't want to take that as like like." And I was like, I was like, that was like the most validating moment for me. Like this random fan not random fan, he's a very famous individual, but this man that doesn't know all that much about my career has walked up to me and gone, "You remind me of your trainer." I was like, that's so fucking validating. Like all I was thinking, I was like, that's when Daniel Bryan gets told he wrestles like Shawn Michaels when he's like 20. I was like, that's badass.
Yeah. So I was that.
Yeah, I was gonna mention Shay. A few weeks ago, you were at the collective. How did you feel about your your weekend there, and do you think you'll go to the States more often, even if it is working for other promotions besides GCW?
Yeah, definitely. So my second, so I've mentioned it in passing already in my very brief intro. I've done 2 tours of the United States. The first one I did, I was wrestling for Chikara Pro Wrestling in 2019, where I went out there to train for a month. And I also worked for a company called Wrestling Revolver, which is Sammy Callahan's promotion. Shout out to them. They're putting on badass shows right now. I think they've just announced a huge one for June 11th. Then I also wrestled for a company called NYWC, which is the school that trained Tony Nese, the school that trained Matt Cardona. That was super fun. But then that was very much a learning time for me. I learned a lot while I was over there, and I gained a knowledge of wrestling that I wouldn't have gained otherwise, and I'm really appreciative for it. And this tour was kind of like, so I was my first match in 2 years is something I'll contextualize to people, because I think a lot of people, Mania weekend, you've probably been working a while. I've been wrestling a while, but I took 2 years off for both mental health reasons, the pandemic, like a lot of different things. And I was so nervous about coming back into a wrestling environment. I was like, I haven't really been to shows in the United. In fact, no, I can tell you, I have not been to a show since the pandemic. I haven't been to a British show since the pandemic. There we go. That's the exact way I'll word it. But prior to GCW, I hadn't been to a wrestling show since the pandemic. The first show that I went to, though, was really nice. I got to hang out. If you watch my streams, I mention this a lot. Tony Storm is a good friend of mine. I got to watch the WrestleCon show with her, and watching one of your friends who was hated wrestling suddenly 180 and love the shit out of it because of Athena and Mia Yim, or Ishii and Timothy Thatcher, or a random ass 6-man with Laredo Kid. Like, it's like that kind of shit is where you're like, oh, I love this. And then one thing that I say, GCW get a brand for being an outlaw mud show shit show type promotion. I have never been looked after better. Like, I'm being serious. Like, I have never been looked after better. Like, actually, Fight Club Pro and Riptide Wrestling, I will also put on that par. But I got there. They made sure that I had like food. They made sure that I was sorted. And I've been very, very transparent with this. They paid me a wage that allowed me, like, I paid my own flights to America and had a few things covered while I was there. They paid my flights home. Like, they covered I made money off that weekend thanks to that, thanks to specifically GCW. And I feel like that's something that not a lot of people hear. Like, a lot of people expect GCW to be, I think, kind of similar to like what the old school American indie wrestling promotions were like, where it's like, hot dog and a handshake, brother. But no, it's actually not. They're a very good wrestling company. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. The amount of people as well, I ain't going to go into who, but the amount of people that were backstage at that show that were big time wrestlers just coming to say hi. Like, I'm talking about people that used to work for the company, people that were wrestling on WrestleMania that have no affiliation with the company, were just hanging out. And that shows the gravitas and pull. It's like ECW if they paid well. Like, it's like, and I think that might be the best compliment you can give a company.
Yeah. So you mentioned Attack, and I know you had a few roles in Attack. You started as a ref, then you got involved in matches, then you turned heel, I think, for a quick second. Then you became brainwashed. So I just wanted to ask, like, how was it like doing all those roles in like not a short amount of time, but really quickly one after the other?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I'll run down my career at Attack. Attack Pro Wrestling is Pete Dunne and Mark Andrews' promotion. It was actually Pete Dunne and Jim Lee, which was the ring announcer who used to backyard with Pete Dunne. I'd recommend going to watch. There's a Tiger Kid, which is Pete, versus Jim Lee Falls Count Anywhere music video on YouTube. I think it's on Pete's old YouTube channel. Pete is 12 in that match, or 14. Like, it is hysterical. And he's in like a little tiger mask. It's so funny. So they started the promotion, and the idea of it, I'll give you a quick too long don't read of Attack. We do it for the money, obviously, was the brand, and it was all friends wrestling each other, cardboard. They used to call it Cardboard Wrestle Kingdom, the bigger shows, because they set up these massive sets with cardboard boxes, and they paint them, and they make them look badass. That was like a really, and it was a really, I say this before, I think 2014 to 17 Attack is the best British wrestling you can get. Like, it's a mix of creativity, ingenuity, and superb professional wrestling, and people trying to, like, there's this other level of, like, they're just trying to break out as professional wrestlers, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to watch, a show collectively of wrestlers trying to break out. And the most they do is, like, once every 6 months, Zack Sabre Jr. would come in. And, like, if you go and look at those cards now, you'd be like, why isn't this selling out Wembley? Like, but in reality, Nixon Newell, Pete Dunne, Mark Andrews, Chris Brooks were not big names, and that's crazy to fucking say when you look at the cards now. Like, it's crazy to think, like, oh yeah, I remember wrestling on a show with Pete Dunne, Nixon Newell main eventing, and it didn't sell out, and it was in 100-person capacity. I remember that. Like, and that's an insane sentence to say. Yeah, Attack then came through, and I started doing, like, I came through as a fan. I watched Attack when I was 13. It was like my home promotion, literally. I grew up next to the venue. The venue was literally next door to where I lived as a kid. And I began off as a referee because Pete gave me a lovely little talk, which was, listen, Shay, you're a bit young and a bit small and a bit, like, not very good at wrestling to be a wrestler yet. He went, do you want to be a referee until you get good and big? And I was like, yeah. He went, you can still wrestle. He's like, just wear a mask. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I went off and did other things in other promotions. Not a fucking lot is what I'm going to emphasize. I did not do a lot in my first couple of years outside of Attack until like 2016, maybe. And I started in 2014. I had my first thing with Attack February 2015. I started to get more frequent work outside of Attack around July 2016. So about a year of being there. And I got brought in as a referee, and then one day they were like, Shay, you've gotten slightly better at wrestling. Do you want to start doing wrestling moves as a referee? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why? I'm not going to turn that down. And then it slowly started to become more and more of a thing, to the point where, like, I was kind of like a Bryce Remsburg-esque character at Attack, or like Rick Knox in PWG with the Young Bucks. And then it evolved eventually into, we were meant to do a storyline at Attack Pro Wrestling. It was a 5-on-5 match, Elimination Survivor Series style match, and mystery fifth partners for both teams. Yeah, I'm obviously saying this with the precipice of, not everyone's a good human and all that, but the end of the stables were meant to be the two mystery opponents were meant to be Will Ospreay and Jimmy Havoc, which at the time in British wrestling in 2017 is, the pinnacle of what you can get, and they both weren't available, and I don't know what happened, but they were suddenly on the list to do it, and then like a week beforehand, both of them pulled. And we had like our two big mystery names pulled, and they were like, what the fuck can we do? And then eventually they went, oh, why don't we have Shay join Team Pete as a heel? Because Pete had been like shit talking me for the past 6 months. And he went, but why don't we have him come out as the babyface first? So it's like, I come out as the babyface, I get the huge pop. I came out to WrestleMania 9 intro theme. And I get like this huge pop, and I'm stood face to face with Pete. He raises his arms, and I low blow Mark Andrews, Jim Lee, and then turn heel. I become like the big villain at Attack for a year until I eventually get sent packing. And I'm a villain referee as well. I'm wrestling occasionally, but I'm also reffing. Like in this time, I wrestled like Kaylee Ray, Nixon Newell, Pete Dunne, Mark Andrews, Eddie Dennis. Like I worked like a bunch of like the Attack staple names and like the bigger names in British wrestling, which benefited me so fucking much. I got like eased into major matches, which is so rare. Like such a rarity. And then like Attack was like recognized as a hotbed or a place you wanted to be to get elsewhere. And then yeah, I started to do real well. I did the heel gimmick, and then I had to come back as a part of a team. It's like one of my favorite moments that I've had in wrestling, where I got to come back and team with Pete, Wild Boar, and Flash Morgan Webster. There's a great photo of me and Pete. beforehand where I've got my arm around him and I'm like hover handing instead of actually having my arm around him. It's one of my favorite photos. Yeah, I came back to like a huge pop. It was in like my local venue as well, which was even better. And then Pete wanted to tag with me for a little while. His schedule didn't allow it, but we did get like 2 tag matches together. And in the first one, he's like, "Shay, do you remember Shay Fu?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I fucking do." And he was like, "I want you to do that," because we came up with that gimmick in like 2016, and just no one bit on it. Nobody wanted to do it. So Pete literally had to force his own promotion to book it, and they loved it. Like obviously, like Pete was like, "This is the best thing of all time. Go and do that elsewhere." And I continued to do it, and then Pete came back, became very hands-on with Attack in 2019, and wanted to do a gimmick where he joined, where the Illuminati took over professional wrestling, and this gimmick was meant to go very far. There's a couple of references to the gimmick that you can see. One that I'm going to bring up now, NXT Takeover, I believe it's Chicago, where Pete loses the belt to Walter. If you look at his left kick pad, he's got our stable symbol on it. If you look, it's a triangle with an eyeball. It's the Illuminati sign. Like, so if a bunch of people are like, why is Pete Dunne got the Illuminati logo on his left leg? You can see it in live tweets. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you go to Sheet of Wrestling Gear on Instagram, there's like a photo of the gear with like clearly with the Illuminati logo on it. I will say, and I vocalize this, that was my least favorite thing that I've done in wrestling. Because not because I was given amazing opportunities, but I really wanted to do what I was currently doing, which was Shay Fu, and I had to go and do something else. And that's a frustration with independent wrestling where in my head, I was like, right, this is a new challenge. I'm going to learn from it, all that. But in reality, I remember being sat there, like, and I said it a couple times to, I think Pete, sadly, so the reason I got frustrated with it, actually, I'll get in this. Pete had to leave Attack because he became, what he became when the pandemic hit. Like, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Like, he went to go do Survivor Series. That was it. He wrestled Adam Cole at Survivor Series. It was like that era of wrestling. So, he leaves and we're kind of left up shit creek without a paddle with this storyline, and it just became like, it was still a very fun storyline, by the way. I recommend, you can't watch it back because the VOD's deleted at the moment. That will be coming back if any Attack fans are watching for some reason. There's the feud kind of tapered away quite a bit. And I felt like and I remember just sitting there, like at the end of the entire feud, and someone asked, "Did you enjoy that?" I was like, "Of course I fucking enjoyed it." I was like, I enjoy wrestling, but like, I was like, if you're asking me if I would have preferred to do a year of Shay Fu or a year of what I've just done, sadly the answer is a year of Shay Fu. But it was a great learning experience for me, and it put me in a different situation. I just would have preferred to be able to do something different at my home promotion. Caveating all of that into a big round bow tie, though, I have learned so fucking much from doing so many different things at Attack Pro Wrestling. It has made me the wrestler who I am. I cannot emphasize that enough. That Pete Dunne and, I don't know, fucking after parties with Trent Seven at Planet Nightclub. We'll go with that.
You mentioned Nixon Newell. Seeing her story and see how she's grown as a wrestler. Are you hoping that she has more success and want to see her hopefully going to like AEW or Impact or anywhere?
I want to see her do whatever she wants to do more than anything. One thing I'll say, so I've known Nixon Steph since I was 14. We used to travel 3 hours every Monday to go and train with Pete Dunne because he was the best wrestler in the UK as far as we were concerned. No one else. Like, we just knew. We were like, this guy's really fucking good. Everyone, like Mark Andrews tells us he is. He's our head trainer. Why don't we go and train with him? And yeah, unsurprisingly, Pete Dunne was a very good wrestler. She, though, has always had like a unique knack for wrestling and a bit of a different mind for it. And I hope, I think she had a shit time with WWE for like so many different reasons, obviously, and nothing of her own volition. I know her dream was always to work for the WWE, so I can't say I've spoken to her all that much. But I do think she's going to go on to do something. Whatever she wants to go on to do next, she'll be very, very happy and good at it. I know she's looking at moving into Twitch streaming last time I spoke to her. So keep an eye out for her on there. Maybe she'll raid me and we'll get loads of viewers one day.
Yeah. I know that she had mentioned with Dakota Kai on Dakota stream that she was starting a Twitch, so I'm hoping that
Yeah.
she starts
Oh,
doing
a
that.
fun fact as well. I believe I was Nixon Newell's last match in the United Kingdom. I
Oh,
believe.
really?
Nice.
I believe I was definitely her last match at Attack, and then I was a second to last match, but we don't talk about the last person, so I am now her last match. There we go.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
There we
Yeah,
go.
Yeah.
yeah. It took me a second.
It took me a second. We got there in the end.
I'm tired, like I
I was gonna
mentioned.
say it's super early for you. Hey.
Yeah. Um, which is why I think if Sam doesn't have any more questions, we'll definitely have you back on.
I can keep going because your career is so interesting to me.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
definitely have you back on at like multiple points because, like
Yeah,
I've
feel free.
said before, you're one of my favorite people to talk wrestling with because
Thank you. I have a lot of stories. Like
yeah,
I have
Yeah.
gone out of my way in my career to create memories, and I don't think that's something a lot of people do. I feel like a lot of people. I'm going to go on a nice little rant to end it. Then, why not? I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people in professional wrestling refuse to enjoy professional wrestling. Whether that's a wrestling fan, promoter, commentator, or wrestler, they just intrinsically don't want to enjoy what they're doing. They have to find a flaw with it, and they have to find a reason not to enjoy it. I include myself in this. Obviously, I'm not a fucking saint when I'm saying this. However, one thing that I've come to really appreciate since starting a Twitch channel is looking back and going, "Oh, that thing I've done is really cool. Oh, that's a fun story. Oh, and it's made me reappreciate my wrestling career." I'm not saying I was ungrateful for it by any stretch of the imagination, but fuck me when I actually look back on it now. Like I'm being able to like tell my friends these cool stories that I haven't seen in years. Like they'll go, "Oh man, I used to love watching WWE back in the day. Do you remember that little guy that used to come underneath the ring, Hornswoggle?" And I can go, "Yeah, I've wrestled him." And that's like an insane moment for me where I can be like that.
Yeah.
Perspectivizing that to 5-year-old Shay is the coolest thing of all time. Telling 5-year-old Shay he went to go and fucking wrestle in America is like mind-boggling to him. And the fact that I've had 2 tours now, and the fact that I've been able to do all of that, and more importantly, especially now more than ever, I savor the moment. I really, and if I give one piece of advice to anyone in life, this is actual, not wrestling advice, life advice. Really take in those fucking moments where you know you're going to enjoy yourself, and especially as a wrestler, though. Like I know I'm saying life advice, but especially as a wrestler, we get burnt out real fast and don't appreciate what we're doing. Whether you're a signed wrestler, an independent wrestler, or whatever, we really, really forget what we enjoy and forget what we love a lot of the time. When you have a moment that makes you proud, sit there and go, "That made me fucking proud." When you have a moment that made you laugh in the industry, go, "Fuck me, that was funny." And when you have a terrible moment, just remember you can tell it on a podcast one day.
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, really, Shane, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Tell us tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, I'll do my default plug. Twitch.tv/SP Purser is the big one. I stream on there near enough every single day. Go over there. I really like talking about things. Like I consider it to be quite an open little community. I consider Sam and Dan to be a part of it. That like I really enjoy the conversations we have on there. I am this isn't edited anyway, so it's kind of the same. But as you can tell,
Yeah.
I just speak a lot. I'm like
Yeah.
one of those wind-up toys where if you leave me long enough, I'll just say loads of words and I won't stop. Um, I really enjoy Twitch streaming. It's become a really healthy part. I'm also a part of Twitch's Sports Accelerator program. We might also be part of some other programs coming up soon, so I recommend checking that out. Instagram, Twitter, whatever, SP Purser, it's all there. I'll be uploading a bunch of free matches to my YouTube soon as well, because all American indie people use YouTube. Like they want to know who you are via YouTube, and that's not a thing in the UK. In the UK, it's actually like the last thing you use is YouTube to find out who a wrestler is. So I'm going to be uploading a ton of free content on there, but I recommend more than anything, check out twitch.tv/SPPurser. We stream Mondays at 10 p.m., Wednesdays at 10 p.m., Thursdays at 10 p.m., and then whenever I feel like it, really. But I'm also going to be bringing in a new segment very, very soon that I've been working on for about a month now, and I'm really excited for that. So yeah, feel free to check me out over there. Instagram, Twitter, plug that. And if you've got a hot sister, hit me up. Or brother, I'm not picky.
well, thanks for coming, man. Thanks, guys, for watching this episode. This very special episode. And you can follow the podcast at Squared Post Pod. You can follow me at Sammed Up Wrestle. Dan, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me at DJ Wrestling Fan on Twitter, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.